This is the story about how I gave my husband, who brought a woman into our home every time I go away on business trip, what he deserved. Hey, honey! I recently noticed I can smell a kind of sweet perfume in the house. Tell me I'm not the only one who can smell it.
You're just imagining things.
A few days later, I prepared a plan to trap my husband and witnessed the moment my husband brought a woman into our house. I rang the doorbell with a certain person by my side.
Coming.
Said my husband with a cheerful voice. Seconds later, the door is opened and he beholds his rightful end. Time for vengeance! My name is Rose and I'm 28 years old. My occupation is what's called a sensory evaluation official. Simply put, my job is to sniff out different scents and evaluate them. I have always had a very sensitive sense of smell. Even compared to other people, my nose detected subtle smells a lot more often. I chose this profession to make the most of my admittedly strange characteristic. I never thought that my genetic blueprint regarding my sense of smell would eventually land me a job. Now, I travel all over the country with this super nose of mine, and I'm recognized by myself and by other people as being a woman with a good job, and who makes enough of a living to get by decently well. My husband, Evan, is 2 years younger than me, and I met him through a mutual friend of ours. As soon as he saw me, he gave a shout, and this is what he said.
Miss Rose, I've fallen in love with you at first sight. Will you please marry me?
He literally bowed his head and held out his right hand to me. I was surprised to see something I had seen somewhere on TV, and the sheer suddenness of his actions left me at a loss for a reply. But then, Evan gently raised his head and said in a quiet voice,
I'm not good enough for you, Miss Rose?
I found his expression in that moment irresistibly cute, and so I replied, No, of course not. I'm flattered. I hope we can be happy together. Then, after 2 years of dating, we were married. My husband is a caregiver, and perhaps it's because of his daily contact with the elderly that he has had a very laid-back personality and open to all kinds of things. To put it in a good way, he is the type of person who accepts anything that people suggest. Put it in a bad way, he doesn't care about anything. He can cook, but he's terrible at cleaning. I'm the only one who does the cleaning, and because of my meticulous nature and this nose of mine, I have to clean every nook and cranny before I feel satisfied. But no matter how clean the house is when I leave for a business trip, when I come home, I always feel like the house has been burglarized. The house was always, without fail, a swirling vortex of entropy and chaos. The fact that my husband can live in such a messy room, a part of me had given up trying to teach him how to clean properly, but little by little, I spent some time teaching him how to clean. One day, I came home from a business trip. It was an interesting case because it was from a restaurant kitchen who was struggling to find a gas leak. They'd closed the restaurant after a mild fire broke out a few days ago, which was quickly dealt with. Luckily, they hired me to sniff where the gas was coming from, and it took me probably 10 minutes to find it. Needless to say, we were all happy by the end. I came home, and as soon as I opened the front door, I felt something strange. Hang on. Yeah, this is the smell of perfume, and it's the kind of smell that women like. But because the scent was particularly to my liking, it made me feel a little sick. But why do I smell this sort of perfume in my own house? I grab my luggage and make my way to the living room. I walk in to see an even more startling sight. I'm home!
Welcome home, honey. I'm just about to finish making dinner, so wait a little while.
My husband was in a very good mood. On top of that, the room that was usually so messy was actually spotless. Did you clean the room, Evan?
Yeah, I did.
Why?
Why? You know I can clean too, right?
Oh, really? No matter how many times I told him, he'd never clean the house. Ever. The moment I walk in the front door, I smell a woman's perfume. And my own husband, who is in a very good mood, cleaned the entire house. This is just too suspicious. Could it be that he's having an affair? Is he bringing a woman into this house? Hey, while I was away on that business trip, what have you been up to, Evan?
What do you mean? I just woke up, cooked breakfast, went to work, came back. Nothing unusual.
But you cleaned up the living room. I'd say that's pretty unusual, wouldn't you agree? I look at him with a hint of suspicion, to which he responded,
Oh, Rose, I'm sorry. The truth is, my mom came over and cleaned up the house.
How nice of her. We'll have to call her to thank her.
I don't think that's necessary, honey. She also said that she didn't need to be thanked. She was happy to help out.
Oh, my dear husband of mine, that reaction is just too suspicious. I pretended to be convinced right then, but I decided to make a plan to see if my husband's suspicious behavior could be justified. A week later, I decided to tell my husband I was going on another business trip. The thing is, that was a lie. I didn't have any business trip and I wasn't going anywhere, to be frank. Hey, honey, I'm going on another business trip starting tomorrow.
Damn, another one? Well, can't be helped, I guess. How many days will you be gone this time?
I'm going to Seattle for 5 days. I'm sorry. I'm always leaving you alone with the house, honey.
It's okay. It's your work. And it really helps us live well and healthy. Good luck.
Okay, now where did his usual response go? Usually, when I'd be going on a business trip that lasted a while, he would get all needy and clingy, in the cutest way possible, telling me something like, I can't believe I won't get to see you for 5 days. But Evan, why is your reply so mature and ordinary this time? I don't get it, but I just knew it was suspicious. Even though I thought this on the inside. I'll get you some souvenirs from Seattle, okay? I know exactly what to bring back, so you just look forward to getting them, alright? I pretended not to notice anything, and the morning of the business trip came quickly. Normally, I would have gone to the airport alone, but for some reason, my husband offered to drive me, just this once. After polishing his car to a shine, that was frankly mesmerizing, he loaded my luggage into the car in a good mood.
I'm guessing that's all you're bringing?
You helped me this time? What did I do to deserve this kind of treatment?
I did all this for my special Rose, honey. I did what I thought I had to do to give you the proper send-off. I don't know why I never helped you before. I'm sorry about that.
Ah, boy. Everything my husband does and says is starting to seem suspicious. Even though the gesture was legitimately out of kindness, I decided to ask him a question. Do you have any plans for later today, Evan?
Let's see here. Oh yeah, I was suddenly asked to come into work on my day off, so I think I'm going to be busy all day.
Oh, is that so? So, you're going to be working on your day off? Good luck with that. As I was saying so, all the countless thoughts that were stirring up a bunch of emotions inside me eventually led me to do something interesting. I remembered that my husband had never worked on his days off since he became a caregiver. From the very beginning of our marriage, he used to say,
I can't imagine working on my days off. No way. No how. Absolutely not.
By that point, it was pretty much confirmed that my husband was hiding something. I was sure he was. I thanked him for driving me to the airport as I got out of the car. Thanks for driving me, Evan. I appreciate it. Good luck with your work on your day off, honey. I'll see you soon. He didn't even look at me as I waved him off. And now, let the real deal begin. I quickly strode over to the taxi station. As I got in, I told the driver, "Please follow that car over there, but make sure you do so in a secretive way." I basically told the driver to start tailing my husband's car, and the chase was on. Evan drove through a town I didn't know with such grace anyone could assume he'd been to this town lots of times before. I wondered where he was going. He stopped in front of a strange apartment I didn't recognize, and stayed there for some time, as though he was waiting for someone. After a while, I see an older woman walk out of the main door and approach my husband's car. I guessed her age was around 40, but the clothes she wore and the makeup suggested she was probably a decade younger. At first, I thought she was approaching his car because she wanted to ask for directions or something. But then, I actually saw her calling shotgun in his car. What? I was so surprised that I unconsciously yelped. Good thing the taxi was a ways away and the windows were shut. His car drives off again, and the taxi driver continued to tail it. My husband having an affair with someone who's older than me was literally the last thing I expected. No, wait. Don't jump to conclusions. We haven't any evidence that confirms she's the one whom he's having the affair with just yet. That's what I thought, and I hoped for the best. But that was quickly betrayed by the reality that after he picked the woman up, his car drove straight to our house. I had a front row seat that beheld the sight of him and the woman, who was clutching his arm, going inside our house. I gave them some time before I told the driver to stay here, got out, leaving my luggage in the taxi, and decided to enter the house by opening the front door softly, so that they wouldn't notice me. When I entered the house, I smelled the same perfume that I had a week earlier. I can't tell you how many times I've smelled it, and how much I still hate that stench. I follow the scent, trying to find out where it was stronger. I look for them, but I can't find them. Where the heck were they? I looked around the house, and as I thought to myself, and then I started to hear voices. They were coming from the end of the hallway, which could be only one place, the bathroom. Yep, you guessed it. They were taking a bath together, right then. And the fact that I was witnessing it made everything so much more serious. Hey, is your wife on a business trip again?
She's away on a business trip for 5 days starting today. She'll be gone for a while.
I can't believe she would leave my darling Evan alone at home for so long. What a terrible wife she is.
I know, right? Even when I tell her I miss her, she always says that there's nothing she could do because it's just work. She goes on a business trip without ever thinking about how I feel when she goes away.
Oh, my poor baby. Well, don't worry. I'm here now, with you. And I'm going to spoil you rotten, okay? As I listened to their conversation, I felt like there was something breaking inside me, shattering into 1,000 pieces. I suspected my husband of cheating on me, but at the same time, maybe there was a part of me that still wanted to believe in him. Was I hurting him by doing my job? Going off to different places in the country pretty frequently? Is that why he's cheating on me in the first place? Listening to their conversation, I came to think that I was the cause of his affair. I decided to quietly leave the house. Was I really such a bad wife? Tears welling up in my eyes because of his betrayal, of course, but also because of the notion that I had caused him to betray me. I quietly put my shoes back on, trudged back to the taxi, and told the driver I needed some time to think. I want to tell someone about this. I started to think about who I could confide in, and the first person that came to mind was Mrs. Dakota, my mother-in-law. She'd always been very supportive of my work, and I loved her like she was my own mother. Hello, Mrs. Dakota. I must be honest with you. I may not be able to live with your own Evan anymore. Oh my goodness. This is a very sudden turn of events. What happened, my dear Rose? Actually, you know what? Wait for a little bit. I'm going over there right now. I'll be there soon. Then my mother-in-law hung up the phone. Because my parents-in-law's house is very close to ours, my mother-in-law and I were able to meet right away. Mrs. Dakota, whose maternal instincts suspected something was terribly wrong, brought along Mr. Dakota, too. I went on to tell them how my husband, their son, had been acting strangely for a few days leading up to that day, and that I saw with my own eyes and heard with my own ears that he's having an affair with another woman. I told them what I'd heard and how I was so worried that I'd been a terrible wife, and that I was the reason why he decided to have an affair. After listening to what I had told them, they responded,
What is that idiot son of ours doing? How dare he do something like this to you, when you're working so hard to keep the relationship alive and healthy? I'll never forgive him for giving you such a hard time.
Rest assured, my dear, that this whole situation is not your fault. Our idiot son and that woman are the ones to blame. Hearing those words, I was able to come back to myself. They were right. It's not my fault, and it never was. I then felt some kind of unfathomable anger rising from my churning stomach. I couldn't even stand still any longer. Mr. Dakota, Mrs. Dakota, I'm sorry, but I cannot forgive your son. He betrayed me, and I'm going to make him pay for what he did.
I agree, dear. He deserves to pay for his treason. I say we get our butts down there and give him hell.
And with that, my in-laws and I to the front door of the house once again. I thought it wouldn't be any fun if we just charged inside and caused a ruckus. So to make things a bit juicier, I decided to call my husband. I dialed his number, but he didn't pick up the phone. I kept on trying, patiently attempting to reach him.
Hello?
When my husband finally answered the phone after a half-dozen attempts, his voice sounded obviously upset. Oh, Evan, thank goodness. Where are you right now?
Oh, I'm at work.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I completely forgot you said you were working on your day off today.
Yeah, I did tell you. But it's all right. Sorry, honey, but I'm busy right now, so I'll call you back later, okay?
My husband was just about to hang up the phone, but I wasn't going to let him get away with this. I took this moment to ring the doorbell. Through the phone, I heard a very familiar ding-dong. Hang on a second. I think I just heard the doorbell ring. It sounds like our home doorbell. Honey, I thought you were at work.
That's weird. I think someone's here, so I'll just be a minute.
Through the front door, my husband peeked out and saw me and my in-laws standing steadfast together, like we were in the Justice League.
What are you guys doing here?
My husband said in a panicked voice. I killed the phone line right then. After that, my parents-in-laws and I decided to storm the house. Of course, I had to preserve the evidence of his affair with another woman, so I activated the camera on my cell phone and started shooting a video. I opened the door with great force, and right at that moment, my parents-in-law and I charged into the house as a chaotic avalanche of people. Evan, in his underwear and screaming with terror, started running away. Mr. Dakota chased after him. It turns out that Evan, who never thought this would happen, answered the phone while he was still wearing nothing but his underwear. He desperately tried to get dressed, but Mr. Dakota relentlessly charged at him.
Give up, even. Son, we already know you've been having an affair in this house. I'm not having an affair, honest. You're still saying that, given the hopeless situation?
Mrs. Dakota slipped past her husband and her son and headed straight for the bedroom. The unfaithful woman was still in bed, just as my mother-in-law had expected. Mrs. Dakota mercilessly ripped the sheet off the woman curled up on the bed. "Please stop!" the woman screamed as she tried to rip the sheets back from Mrs. Dakota, who was, meanwhile, quickly gathering up whatever she can. She got the cheating woman's clothes, and there was some underwear in there too. "Please, please, give it back." She was sobbing her eyes out, but Mrs. Dakota never even glanced back at the woman and went on confiscating what could be assumed as her personal belongings. And then my father-in-law went into the room and said but 5 words to her.
"You, woman, living room, now."
His voice was terrifyingly quiet. The unfaithful woman, crying a waterfall, wrapped herself up in a sheet and scampered towards the living room. My mother-in-law was catching the footage on my phone all the while. Surely the evidence would be able to easily convince an upcoming jury that she is guilty of adultery. When we stepped into the living room, my husband had already been there, in his underwear, sitting on the floor on his knees, waiting, trembling. For the rest of us, Mr. Dakota must have given him quite a struggle, for Evan's hair was a picture-perfect badger's den. Another 5 words directed to the woman. She was trembling with fear, just like Evan, and she shakingly kneeled next to him, posture upright, her entire body cocooned in bed sheets. Mr. Dakota stood before them, his bulky arms folded, staring down at the two of them for a while. Silence follows. Only the sobbing voice of the unfaithful woman leaves echoes throughout the room. The silence was eventually broken by my husband.
"I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was so lonely, and during this time, she was so kind and caring towards me. Before I knew it, it turned into this. I'm so sorry."
He dares to look up at me as he says this. "You really think that it was okay to cheat on me just because you were lonely?"
"What? But that's..."
After thinking, being at a loss of words for a while, my husband continued.
"The cheating was just a sudden impulse, you know? I'm really sorry."
Something just snapped with the words, "sudden impulse." I've been listening to you for a while now, and you're saying things like that before I knew it, and sudden impulse? Could you be honest for once and stop saying things that sound like it was a slip of the tongue? And you really expect me to feel bad for you? A grown man who tells me he feels lonely? You're so pathetic. It's actually painful. It's embarrassing to listen to you. As I said so, I gave him a big slap in the face. I suppose he didn't think I'd lose my temper that much, because I believe that slap made him finally realize the gravity of the situation. He then bowed his head so deeply towards the ground and kept apologizing.
"I promise I won't cheat on you anymore, Rose, my darling. So please, find it in your heart to forgive me, please."
Seeing his own son like that, in this state, Mr. Dakota said to me,
"Rose, my dear, we're responsible for this situation too, because we allowed him to grow up with these sickening ideologies. I'm so sorry."
My father-in-law approached his son, grabbed his head, pushed it further down until it touched the floor, and knelt himself in apology. I was frankly moved by his selflessness. As soon as my husband heard what his father said, he became very agitated.
"I'm willing to do anything else. Just please don't make me divorce her."
He started to beg again. Mr. Dakota started pressuring him again, verbally this time, and continued to pressure him until Evan finally agreed to go along with the divorce. In tears, he filled out the divorce form I'd brought along just in case. As for the unfaithful woman, she calmly observed her lover all the while. Why did I have an affair with this man? Was probably what she was thinking. For, visibly, she was in a state of self-loathing. I began to feel sorry for the unfaithful woman, but Mrs. Dakota remained undeterred through to the end. You have no right to pretend to be so depressed, darling. From my point of view, both you and my son, Evan, are on the same level. So don't you dare think you'll be forgiven for the fair share you perpetrated in this situation. She handed her a white piece of paper and a pen. The woman knew what that meant, and she was still wrapped up in the bed sheets as she signed a consent form that promised to pay me alimony. When they both finished the paperwork, Evan and the cheating woman, whose name turned out to be Julia, were kicked out of the house with their belongings. Finally, it was all over. When Evan was kicked out of the house along with Miss Julia, he attempted to ask the woman to help him out, but seeing him that pathetic probably made her feelings for him turn stone cold, because she mercilessly dumped him on the spot. They took their individual belongings and left the scene. After that, my husband and I were able to get a divorce without any problems. The alimony was arranged to be paid in installments, and they both pay me every month. My ex-husband's colleagues at his job eventually found out that the reason why he got divorced was because he cheated on me. Miss Julia was apparently working at the same elder's home, and there was evidence that they usually took the same days off together. Suspicious of an affair between the two of them had surfaced before, but no further evidence could be found. However, now that Evan's divorce was out of the bag, to confirm the rumors, their boss finally decided to interview the two of them. Evan didn't confess to having an affair, but the unfaithful Julia readily admitted they did. As a result, they were both fired right then and there. I still feel a little sorry for them, but what they did was their own fault, and they got the results that they deserved. I don't think it could have been helped. They were both going to be fired eventually anyway. As for me, I moved out of the apartment I was living in with my ex-husband, and currently, I'm living in a one-room apartment. As I am a workaholic, I don't mind if the room is a little small and cramped. Alright then, since I'm going on a business trip for another week starting tomorrow, I have to get packing. I'll sign off with this. I'm going to continue to enjoy my admittedly unusual occupation, and I'm going to live my life well and healthy. Thanks for listening, and good luck to you.